This situation is complicated, and I'm at my wit's end. I have two daughters who are civil to each other, but don't get along. My eldest is married to Steve, while my youngest is engaged to Adam. Steve and Adam are so different. They disliked each other the first time they met. Steve works part-time because he treasures family time with my daughter. They spend their time traveling and exploring different parts of the States. He spends freely because he often says he can't take his money with him when he dies. Adam is an executive, and he owns several dozen properties for his side business. He works about 80 hours a week at both jobs because his philosophy is that he wants to make as much money as possible while he's young so that he can retire early. Steve thinks Adam is a corporate shill and blames him for everything wrong with society. Steve said Adam is actively keeping people from buying homes and making them dependent on him. Adam thinks Steve is a slacker and has told Steve that people like him who do the bare minimum but expect handouts are what's wrong with society. Neither of them is bad, and they treat my daughters well. I retired last year due to my health, so Adam built a house for me to live in comfortably. I was able to customize everything in the house to fit my taste. Adam owns the house, pays for all the utilities, and charges me $1 monthly for rent. Part of our deal is that no one else can live in the house but me. He was very clear about this. Steve recently lost his job, so he and my eldest live off her single income. As you can imagine, they're struggling. My eldest recently called me crying because their savings are almost gone and they can't make next month's rent. She asked if she and Steve could move in with me until he finds another job. I live on a fixed income, so I don't have money to set them up in another apartment. She's my daughter and I couldn't let her be homeless, so I let Steve and her move in. I gave them strict rules and a time limit on when they had to move out. I didn't think my youngest and Adam would find out because they live in another state, but somehow she found out. She called and screamed at me last night for betraying Adam's trust, but I argued that I'm a mother to two daughters and I can't let one be homeless. I told her about the rules and the time limit and begged her not to tell Adam. She hung up on me, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I know I went back on an agreement, but I had a good reason. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. I'm sorry, but Adam's doing you a favor by letting you live in the house, and he gave you one rule, so he's not taken advantage of. Not only did you break this rule, but you did so by allowing the person who insulted Adam to live there. Your daughter and her husband want to live by the values they have. Fair enough, but they need to be able to have money to back that up. If Steve losing his part-time job puts them in this much trouble, then they don't have the money to spend freely and travel to begin with. Yeah, you have two daughters, but at the end of the day, the person who owns this house has no obligation to house your adult daughter and her husband, and honestly, you. So if you lose your home because of this, then you only have yourself to blame. And honestly, Steve should stick to his values and not live in a house built by a corporate shill. No, see, Steve only thinks Adam's a corporate shill when Adam's money doesn't benefit Steve. If it benefits Steve, then it's totally not being a shill or something. I feel Adam set up that rule because he knew this would happen. OP, if you're living on a fixed income to the point where you're only paying $1 a month and no utilities, and still can't afford to financially help them rent another place, you need to understand how badly this could go for you. Yeah, so where does that fixed income go? Steve's trips and crap? Oh, and Adam isn't even the daughter's husband yet. They're just engaged. This is going to be so ugly when he finds out. OP is blind to the fact that Steve is a financially irresponsible person and dares to be sanctimonious about his frivolous ways. When the foolishness of Steve's irresponsible ways finally catches up to his family, he uses mother-in-law to sneak into one of Adam's houses. Jeez. Update. Am I the idiot for letting my daughter and her husband move in with me so they won't be homeless? Adam pays the taxes and utilities on this house, but because it's the only house he has in this state, he keeps its financials separate from the rest of his properties. Also, he doesn't really have anything to do with the house. Instead, he gave it to my youngest daughter to take care of, so she handles all the bills and maintenance and pays them out of an account he set up. She noticed the increased utility cost, which is when she called. We just spoke again, and I laid my soul bare to her. I knew I was going back on our agreement, but it was to keep her sister from being homeless. We had a lengthy conversation, and in the end, she agreed not to tell Adam. Instead, she'll cover the increased utility cost out of her own pocket so he won't notice it. In exchange, her sister and Steve will have 3 months, and then they'll have to move out. I originally told them they had 6 months. I'm lucky to have such a compassionate daughter. Thank you for taking the time to read my post. Some of the comments were very hurtful, but some were helpful. You really made me realize that I should have called my youngest at the start and asked. That would have saved a lot of tears. My goodness, you're an even bigger idiot for making your other daughter lie to her future husband to keep your secret. Now when he finds out, not if, because he will find out somehow, your daughter's betrayed his trust in a major way to cover for you, that could possibly ruin their relationship too, just because you're being selfish. Agree. And in 90 days, when Steve still doesn't have a job, not for there being none available, but because none are suitable for him, what then? OP, you know that's exactly what will happen. Adam probably finds out, and there are now 4 people in need of housing, given that his mother-in-law emotionally manipulated his fiancée into lying and manipulating him. Nice to know that Steve is living off of Adam's hard work and generosity. He must feel like such a man and provider for his family. And I hope Adam realizes how untrustworthy all of you guys are. He had one condition. You live in a free house with no rent or utilities under one condition, and you broke it. And now you're hiding it from him? Honestly, he sounds like the only one bringing in any money, and you guys are using him. Congrats, OP. You've potentially damaged your daughter's relationship because when Adam finds out, and he will realize his partner went behind his back and lied to him. So this kicked off about an hour ago, and I'm just stunned. So I'm posting this here. I, 37 female, am a single mother who moved to a new city 3 months ago with my 2 children, a female teen and a male tween. It's my daughter's birthday today, and I want to help both my children make new friends, as this move has been a lot for both of them. So I told my daughter to invite a group of kids from school to our home for a party, and my son could invite a couple of kids too. I sent out the invitation about a month ago, and on them, I asked for any dietary requirements to be specified. Since I'm a chef, I was planning to make a whole spread for the party, and all the invitations came back, with 2 kids needing vegan options and 1 kid needing no nuts. All good, especially as my son can't have nuts, so I'm used to working with that. I made a big spread, ensuring there were clearly labeled vegan options, and everything was going fine until one of the girls approached me asking what was gluten-free. I won't lie, I had a panic about this, and I asked what she meant, and she explained to me that she couldn't have gluten and seemed very embarrassed about this. So I told her gently that they hadn't responded with any dietary needs, so I'd not prepared a gluten-free option for her. Now, I couldn't exactly go and whip something up without gluten because my entire kitchen would be contaminated, and I also wasn't going to let a kid go hungry, so I ordered some takeout for her from a nearby restaurant that had gluten-free options. Crisis averted, I thought, and while I was more than a bit annoyed at the girl's family who'd not given me a heads up, I wasn't going to let it ruin the day. The party wrapped about an hour ago, and it went well. My daughter's even having 2 of the kids she invited sleep over, and my son is having 1 of the kids he invited sleep over. I wasn't thinking much of the gluten incident anymore until the girl's mother came to my door and went off on me for not having a gluten-free option for her daughter and how she'd felt embarrassed by having takeout compared to everyone else. I was angry at this and told her that if they'd let me know she couldn't have gluten, of course that wouldn't have happened, and they were lucky I wasn't charging them for the takeout I had to order. Still, she seemed to think I should have had a gluten-free option anyway, if I were a chef. That comment had me just staring in stunned silence at her. In the end, I wasn't about to start a bigger fight over this today, and told her that I hoped her daughter had enjoyed the party, and then closed the door in her face. She yelled at my closed door for a bit, and even kicked it several times. I'm just blown away by this whole exchange. Is it really that bad that I ordered her daughter takeout when they didn't let me know they needed a special dietary option? Not the idiot. I'm shaking. The audacity of that mother to come over to your house and yell at you for embarrassing her child. Oh, and she kicked the door? If people did that to me, I'd be calling the police. I'm embarrassed for the mom. I'm sure the child is very used to her mother embarrassing her. Poor girl. Can you imagine having to deal with the harpy of a mother like that? With that entitled of a parent, I'm betting that the kid doesn't even medically need gluten-free, but that the mom thinks it's healthier for people to eat that way, so she's forcing it on her kids. Yeah, what the heck? You did more than give her a cup of baby carrots and a bag of potato chips. You went way above and beyond, given that they RSVP'd without saying she needed gluten-free food, even though you asked. By the way, sorry that happened to you, but that poor girl. I hope the kid grows up to be a better person. My son lives with me, which is fine. He's 35, but I have a big house, and I appreciate the company and occasional help around the house. Previously, he lived with his ex-girlfriend, Kira, who he had 2 children with. I love my grandsons and was very blessed that even from pregnancy, Kira let me be very involved, as her mother died when she was very young, and she doesn't have much family as she was bounced around the foster system. Early on, even before the kids, we became close, and I viewed her as a daughter, which my son encouraged. Last year, while Kira was pregnant with their second, they split up. My son blames Kira, but I know from living with him and being a close support that it is at best 50-50. Once they split up, my son decided he didn't want to have anything to do with Kira or the kids, and his previously encouraged and embraced view of our friendship turned, and he wanted me to have nothing to do with them. I told him no. I was going to continue to be a big part of my grandkids and Kira's life. This has caused some friction, but we mostly operate on a don't ask, don't tell. Once a week, I go to Kira to see the kids, usually after I go grocery shopping. My son always gives me a list of what he wants, and then I get that plus what I want, and what I use for cooking and for us during the week. I do all the cooking for my son and me, but he often doesn't eat my food and opts for the ready-made stuff he asks me to get him instead, if that matters. And I always ask Kira if she needs anything. She usually says no, but I still always bring some fruits and veggies. She likes the same food I do, so I also will sometimes bring her part of what I get for myself if I know it's too much for me to eat during the week. An example is salmon. My son hates fish, but Kira and the kids love it, so I'll get a big one, portion it at Kira's, and then bring home what I'll eat. Friday, my son saw the receipt from the groceries and was irate about how much the salmon cost for the amount I got. I told him the truth is that I gave 2/3 of the salmon to Kira. He blew up and demanded I stop buying her groceries, or if it continued, he wanted the same amount spent on him. The thing is, I get him everything he asked for. It's just that a box of Pizza Pops is less money than salmon. I also tend to get organic produce for myself and Kira and the boys, but my son refuses to eat certain things if they're organic. It doesn't make sense to me, but he said I was an idiot. Checks it again with squinting eyes to make sure I see things correctly. 35-year-old grown adult son is throwing a hissy fit that you're buying food for his children and demanding equal amounts of money be spent on him? What is this, the freaking Twilight Zone? I have to be in an alternate reality. OMG, yep, not the idiot. He's a child and a deadbeat father. So I kick his butt out and ask Kira and the kids to move in. He doesn't see his own children, and he's living in your house while you buy groceries for his kids. At his big age, he needs to be more responsible. But because of you, he doesn't even have to do his own grocery shopping, much less make sure his kids are fed. Yep, your son is the biggest and worst type of idiot there is. He's a classic deadbeat, dropping his kids regardless of who the blame is on. He's also an idiot for living in mommy's basement, having mommy buy his groceries, and getting mad that mommy's taking care of his kids. Finally, you are the idiot to support this deadbeat behavior. Shame on you. Update. Oh my. I didn't expect to get so many messages. It would seem I have some thinking to do. So many of you have pointed out that I'm enabling my son. I didn't think I was because I've been very clear about how I feel about him being there for the boys. But actions are as important as words. I will not stop being in Kira and the boys' lives ever. And in fact, I'll probably increase the amount of time and resources I give to them. I also just want to state that Kira was never unfaithful. Her only crime was being unwilling to forgive my son for some actions unless he went to therapy, which he did not do, and she rightfully informed HR at his former workplace of something relevant. Also, I don't know if he pays child support. He won't talk to me about it, and Kira says she doesn't want to put me in the middle of things. It's unfair, and they'll settle things in court through proper channels. My tween son goes to a skate park after school with his friends, including his cousin, my nephew Jack, who's also a tween. I went to pick up both boys when I saw a crowd of kids by the fence. I went over and asked what was so interesting, and they pointed to a snake. Not just a snake, but a rattlesnake. They had never seen one before outside of a zoo, and I assumed they were trying to get it to strike because they didn't think they'd get bit. I told them all to get away from it, and they did, except Jack, who actually got closer to it with his phone. I think he wanted to get a close-up video of the snake striking. I yelled at him to get away, and he told me to hold on. I took him by his arm and pulled him away. He gave me this angry stare. I told him, "What the heck? That snake could kill you." He gave me the silent treatment until his mom picked him up. Then 20 minutes later, she called me up in a rage about how I grabbed him and did this and did that to him and hurt him, etc., and how I'm not his dad. I asked her if her sweet angel had told her about the rattlesnake he was provoking. She said, "What snake?" I hung up. She called up again and said that I still owed her and Jack an apology for handling him. I told her to screw off and check his phone and see if I did any of that stuff, as his camera was recording everything. An hour later, my brother called me up and said what Jack did was stupid, and he was happy I was there, but I still owed his wife an apology for telling her to screw off. I said I'm not apologizing for anything, at least until she apologizes to me for coming at me sideways, twice. To be honest, I don't even care because I don't like her anyways. He apologized, and I said not acceptable. She needs to apologize. Not the idiot. Your sister-in-law needs to apologize and learn that you don't just listen to kids and then go nuclear. You ask questions. She would not have gone nuclear if she had asked questions like a normal human. She has issues, and she's teaching her son that he's a precious being that no one can discipline. I mean, seriously, it was a rattlesnake, and you were yelled at for manhandling him? She owes you a big apology and needs to take some anger management and parenting classes. She's teaching her kid that he can lie, and she can go full nuclear, rather than teaching her kid about the boy who cried wolf. Seriously, like if a kid says, "Uncle grabbed my arm and yanked me around," wouldn't the obvious next question be, what was the context? Who was around? What was happening? You're completely in the right here, OP. Your brother demanded you apologize for dismissing a false accusation, so you're definitely not the idiot for insisting she apologizes for false accusations. So he wants to avoid drama in the family? He could have handled the entire convo with you from the beginning. She comes in hot, she can be embarrassed.